Welcome to Hablas Español, the wild origin story, surprising facts, and biggest myths about the Spanish language. Okay, so, real talk. You're sitting in Spanish class memorizing vocabulary, probably wondering, why am I even learning this? Like, where did this language even come from? Who decided queso means cheese and not something completely different? Well, buckle up, because the origin story of Spanish is low-key one of the most dramatic, chaotic, and honestly fascinating things I've ever dug into. We're talking empires, invasions, a language that evolved over centuries, and a few myths that your brain has probably accepted as facts. I'm Carla, and today we're going way beyond the textbook. All right, let's set the scene. Picture this. It's around 2,000 years ago. The Roman Empire is at its peak, like fully in its main character era. Roman soldiers march into the Iberian Peninsula, that's modern-day Spain and Portugal, and they bring their language with them. That language? Vulgar Latin. And no, vulgar doesn't mean rude. It just means the everyday street-level Latin that regular people actually spoke, not the fancy formal Latin of scholars, the chill version. So Latin, the ancestor of Romance languages, starts spreading across the peninsula. But here's where it gets interesting. The people already living there, the Iberians, the Celts, the Basques, they don't just disappear. Their languages leave fingerprints, little traces that get baked into what Latin is becoming. And then, the Roman Empire falls, chaos mode activated. Over the next few centuries, waves of different groups move through, the Visigoths, Germanic tribes, each one adding tiny bits to the linguistic soup. But then, and this is the plot twist, in 711 CE, the Moors arrive. Muslim scholars and warriors from North Africa cross into the Iberian Peninsula, and they stay for nearly 800 years. 800 years, and they brought Arabic with them. Here's a fun one. So many Spanish words that start with al, like almohada, meaning pillow or algebra, are Arabic. The al part literally means the in Arabic. So every time you say algebra in math class, you're low-key speaking Arabic. Mind blown? Same. Stay tuned. More of our story in a moment. This episode is brought to you by Latin, the language that refused to die. Latin officially dead since 476 CE, yet somehow the parent of over 1 billion speakers worldwide. Resting in peace? Nah. Latin said, I don't do finales, I do spin-offs. And now back to our story. So by the time the Reconquista, the Christian kingdoms reclaiming the peninsula, wraps up in 1492, Spanish, or Castilian as it was called, has absorbed Latin, traces of Iberian languages, Germanic influences, and a huge chunk of Arabic vocabulary. It's a remix. A full collab album. And then, same year by the way, Columbus sails to the Americas. Suddenly, Spanish is being carried across an ocean. It collides with hundreds of indigenous languages, Nahuatl, Quechua, Taíno, and so many more. Words like chocolate, tomato, and hurricane, those came from indigenous languages and got absorbed into Spanish and then into English, too. So yeah, your hot cocoa has a Nahuatl origin story. You're welcome. Fast forward to today, and Spanish is spoken by over 500 million people as a native language. It's the second most spoken native language in the entire world, second only to Mandarin Chinese. That's a lot of people. Crazy, right? Okay, so now my favorite part, myths versus facts. Let's bust some things open. Myth number 1. Spanish comes from Spain. Technically, yes and no. Spanish evolved from Latin on the Iberian Peninsula, but the version that spread globally came heavily through Latin America. Today, the majority of Spanish speakers, we're talking like 70 to 75%, live in the Americas, not Spain. So, in a way, Spanish is as much a Latin American language as it is a European one. Myth number 2. There's one correct Spanish. Oh, this one is so persistent. Students always ask, am I learning real Spanish? Here's the truth. There is no single correct Spanish. The Spanish spoken in Mexico City, Buenos Aires, Madrid, and Havana are all valid. They have different accents, different slang, different vocabulary. It's like asking if American English or British English is the real English. Neither. Both. It depends on context. Language is alive. It changes based on where people live and who they're talking to. Myth number 3. Spanish and Portuguese are basically the same. Okay, so they are closely related. Like, very closely. They're basically siblings from the same Latin parent, but they are not mutually intelligible in the way people think. A Spanish speaker and a Portuguese speaker can pick up on a lot, but full conversations, that gets tricky fast. Think of it like you can tell a French bulldog and an English bulldog are related. Doesn't mean they're the same dog. Fact that sounds like a myth. The Spanish Royal Academy, La Real Academia Española, literally updates the official Spanish dictionary every year. There are people whose job it is to decide if new words get to be officially Spanish. In 2023, they added words inspired by internet culture and social media. So yes, language gatekeeping is real, and it has a whole institution behind it. So here's the takeaway, and I want you to actually sit with this. When you're in Spanish class struggling with ser versus estar, you're not just learning grammar rules. You're interacting with a language that survived Roman conquest, Arab scholarship, colonial expansion, and centuries of cultural exchange. Every word you learn carries history inside it. Spanish isn't just a class you have to pass. It's literally a living archive of human civilization, and you're now part of that story. That's it for today's episode. If this made you look at your Spanish work even slightly differently, mission accomplished. I'm Carla. Keep asking questions, keep being curious, and I'll catch you next time. This educational podcast was created with Magic School AI.